Hello, welcome and good morning to you all, and welcome to the latest MEED webinar. This month, we're looking at the ever-popular Saudi Giga Projects program, giving some of the latest updates over the last 3 months and providing you some insight and news on the Giga Projects program. I guess the one subject and topic that everyone is talking about and has been talking about over the last year or 2 years, really citing projects in the kingdom, and certainly something that is providing a lot of work and opportunities for all companies on the project supply chain. Okay, so my name is Edward James. I'm the head of content and research at MEED, and I'll be your host for today. As ever, we'll be doing a 30 to 40-minute presentation, data-filled with a lot of analysis and the latest updates on the Giga Project program. And following that, we'll have some time for Q&A. You'll see that there is a Q&A answer box in your Zoom menu, which you can use to ask questions on the presentation, and I will attempt to try and answer them at the end of the presentation. Now, as ever, this presentation is being recorded and will be uploaded online to YouTube over the next few days. So you will be able to watch it again in your own time and share it with colleagues. We'll also be sending out this presentation itself to you all who have registered for the webinar today. And that will be done during the course of this presentation over the next hour or so. So you will also have a chance to see again and go through the data and the presentation itself in your own time, because there is a lot of data today, and therefore it is a great opportunity to be able to absorb it as well on a presentation PDF sheet as well. Okay, so without further ado, let's go. Very quickly, just a little bit about MEED in case you are not familiar with us. MEED is a business intelligence company that provides a wealth of data and analysis, events, and other custom and marketing solutions, as well as premium reports particularly to companies interested in the Middle East economy and the projects market. We have our news, features, and analysis service, MEED.com. We have our projects tracking database and platform, MEED Projects. We have our premium report program. We have events like our Saudi Giga Projects Summit, which I will be talking about in a minute. And we also have commercial content marketing solutions business as well. So if you want to find out more, check out MEED online, and or reach out to us and you'll get a little bit more details. And actually, it's through MEED Projects in particular, our projects tracking database, that we are able to track the trends and analysis as well as challenges facing the Giga Projects program. And indeed, most of the data today is coming from that platform and also from MEED.com. Right, now, another thing I just want to update you on is our Saudi Giga Projects Q1 2025 report, our premium report, which is similar to this presentation we're giving today, except 10, 20 times as much detail. So covers, I think, more than 700 or 800 pages in PowerPoint format, like you can see here, and gives a rundown of each and all of the Giga projects with the scope, the various contracts, contact details, and so on, and overall top-line analysis as well. This is our best-selling report. If you are interested, please, there is a discount code there for everyone attending today until the 5th of March. You can get a $600 discount. There's a QR code as well if you want to learn more. And certainly, as I said, the most popular report we have, and is full of information and context for the Giga Projects program if you want to know more. Now, I mentioned earlier our Saudi Giga Projects Summit. We are hosting it again on the 12th to the 14th of May. And it's going to be held at the venue by Roshan Group. Roshan, the Giga Project client and developer, is going to be our hosts for the summit, I'm delighted to say. The venue is a great modern event venue. It's close to the airport, and we're really excited that Roshan are hosting us, and obviously we'll be participating in the event as well. These are on the bottom. You can see some of the partners that are teaming up with us and will be attending the event as well. Most of, if not all of the Giga project clients will be, have been invited to speak and attend. And based on last year's experience, which was a fantastic event, you're going to get fantastic, unprecedented opportunity to network with key stakeholders in the projects market. There are going to be various workshops, one-to-one meetings, this gala dinner, and so on. So I'm really, really excited and looking forward to that. It is in my opinion, the premier event focused on the Giga Projects program. It's a 3-day event this year, and certainly well worth checking out and attending. And there's a QR code if you want to find out more. And also, if you are a key stakeholder in the Saudi Arabia Giga Projects market, if you're interested in speaking also or presenting at the event, then please also reach out to us, and we can talk to you about potential speaking opportunities as well. In the run-up to this Giga Projects Summit, we held advisory board meetings to discuss potential topics and subject matters and issues that should be addressed and brought up and spoken about at the summit. And this is just the last one we did a couple of weeks ago. And you can see based on the attendees that there's various major stakeholders across the supply chain, clients, consultants, contractors, and suppliers who are being given their input on some of the topics and subject matters that we should be discussing and highlighting during the summit itself. Okay, without further ado, let's go into the state of play for the projects market in the region and in Saudi Arabia to set some context, and then we'll look in more detail at some of the Giga project developments over the last 3 months. Just as a reminder, this is being recorded and will be uploaded to YouTube in the next couple of days. So you'll be able to watch it in your own time. And the presentation itself is going to be emailed to you over the next hour. And if you have registered for the event, it will go to the email address that you registered with. So keep an eye out for that as well. And then at the end of this presentation, you'll have an opportunity to submit questions, and I'll try to answer them live. So you do have a Q&A box in your Zoom menu bar, so feel free to ask your questions there. Okay, so how did we do in 2024? So we know from that 2023 was a record year, stunning year for the projects market in the GCC after nearly a decade of fairly stagnant projects market spending, mainly as a result of falling oil prices. And you can see that from 2015, $173 billion, which was the previous sort of record high, we fell then to an average of about $110 billion between 2016 and 22. Now, we knew that the Giga Projects program was accelerating, but I don't think anyone expected in 2023 that we would nearly double the value of work that we saw in 2022. So we reached an astounding $248 billion worth of contracts signed in 2023, record year, best ever by a large margin. And the market was going into the sort of boom period, a golden age for the projects market in the GCC. Of course, going into 2024 last year, the main question was, would this continue into 2024, or was 2023 an outlier one-off? And we can see now, taking the year as a whole, the year-end data for the year as a whole, we can see that the 2024 numbers actually exceeded 2023's performance. We reached $264 billion worth of contracts awarded last year, so it was even better. And this, of course, suggests that we've entered a new paradigm for project spending and projects market activity in the region, and we're now in a period of sustained project expansion. It's sustained increases in capex. So for most companies active in the projects market in the region, it's never been as good as it is now. This is, of course, across all sectors. not just construction and infrastructure, but including oil and gas and power, water, and so on. So for everyone involved in all sectors, it's never been as good as it has been today. Now, taking that same data and looking at it on a country basis, splitting it by the 6 different GCC states, we can see that Saudi Arabia has gone from strength to strength, last year recording $144 billion worth of contracts signed and awarded in last year. This is quite a bit higher than the $117 billion in 2023, which itself was a record. And you can see it's more than half the number, it's more than double the size of the value of work awarded in 2021-22, and certainly much higher than previous years. So a lot of this big acceleration and growth and record numbers in the projects market in the GCC is really being driven by Saudi Arabia. You can see it's worth more than the other 5 GCC states combined. That said, the UAE has also had 2 record years, $92 billion signed in 2023, a small dip, but nonetheless, in any other year would have been a record of $81 billion awarded in 2024. So it's these 2 markets which are accelerating, which are dominating overall spending on projects in the region. You'll see the other 4 markets fairly stable year on year, but a lot smaller than Saudi Arabia and the UAE. Okay, now let's take again the same data, look at it by sector. And I think this shows some interesting numbers here. We can see that construction remains the single largest sector of project spending in the GCC. So historically is always the biggest. But we actually saw a fall in total contract awards in the construction segment, construction being villas, towers, residential, commercial, mixed use, malls, hotels, educational projects, and so on. We actually saw a small fall from $80 billion to just over $70 billion last year, which I think is quite interesting, especially within when taking into account that the Giga projects program is largely consists of construction projects as well as infrastructure and transport schemes. In fact, what we saw last year is what this fall in construction spending was offset by a rapid increase in growth in the power sector market, particularly in renewable energies. We've also saw an increase in oil spending and a stabilization in the water sector as well, which, as you can see here, seems to have also entered a new paradigm as it's a critical sector for government spending right now. In terms of transport and infrastructure, we also saw a small rise, but nothing dramatic. And indeed, what this data really suggests is that the power sector really saved the market last year. And without the sudden spurt in activity in power generation, as well as transmission and distribution projects, and then the market wouldn't have nearly performed quite as well. And I think also it's important to look at some inflation-adjusted numbers as well. We saw that the previous record was about $173 billion set in 2014 and 2015. And so when we looked at $240 billion and $264 billion awarded in 2023 and 2024, it looks like there's been a massive increase in spending, and the market simply isn't going to be able to cope. But when we look at it from an inflation-adjusted perspective, we can see that the performance in 2023 and 24 is not as much higher than the 2014 and 15 inflation-adjusted numbers, which tends to suggest that the market is going to be able to absorb some of the big demand increases that large value of contract work implies. So that provides some assurance there, I think, that the market has been in a fairly similar position on an inflation-adjusted basis than it was 10 years ago. So I think that's also an interesting way of looking at the project's activity and demand as well. Okay, now we're going to start looking at Saudi Arabia in particular, looking for more focused on the kingdom's projects market. And again, I think it's interesting because we've seen a slight fall last year in construction projects market spending, as well as transport and infrastructure. So we are this big record, an increase in spending last year from $117 billion to $144 billion in the kingdom was really as a result of a doubling in power sector investment, as well as a big increase in gas spending, oil sector spending as well. Water, fairly stable, down in the transport and infrastructure sectors. And a reason why I want to focus on the construction and transport infrastructure spending is that, of course, the Giga projects market is comprised primarily of these two market segments. So you can see where this is going in terms of project market performance last year. Now, another thing to make a note of, which again, I think is worth spending some time on, is that the power sector, especially when it comes to power generation projects, are primarily PPP projects where the private sector comes in and finances, develops, builds, and operates the projects, i.e. it's being done, not budgeted by the government directly, and is funded instead by the private sector. And again, I think that points to some interesting conclusions that one can reach about the projects market in the kingdom, which we'll go on to in a second. Okay, so now let's focus on the Giga projects market in particular for the rest of this presentation. Now, I'm sure you'll all be fairly familiar with this next two slides, as I've shown them constantly on most presentations that I give. These are the Giga projects, or what MEED considers Giga projects when we're looking at Saudi Arabia. We have the 5 official Giga projects, all subsidiaries of the PIF, the Public Investment Fund. They are Neom, Red Sea Global, Diriyah Company, Roshan, and Hidea. And then we have various other PIF subsidiary project companies like Saudi Downtown, New Murabba, The Rig, Ruwa Medina, Jeddah Central Development Company, Sudan, so on, as well as King Salman International Airport, which are not officially tagged Giga projects, but are, to all intents and purposes, bundled into that same definition of Giga projects as well. So we are not just looking at those 5 official ones when we're in this presentation, we're looking at these others as well. And we're also looking at various non-PIF Giga project companies, such as the Royal Commission for Al Ula, the Royal Commission for Riyadh City, Green Riyadh, King Salman Park, and Riyadh Sports Boulevard as well. So those are the first 2 columns on the left and in the middle. Those are the ones, the data for which is used in this presentation. I think it's also important to note other key clients in the kingdom, such as National Housing Company, Saudi Aramco, Saudi Arabian Railways, JEDCO, Ministry of Sport and National Water Company, and so on. This is the data from these projects are not included in this presentation when it comes to Giga projects, but I think it's worth noting that the value and volume of work in the kingdom is actually far higher for this third column, the others column, than it is for the middle two, the left hand and middle column. So it's this others, the other segments, the other sectors, and the other project companies, which are generally far larger in terms of activity and spending than the left column and the middle column. Right, again, you should be fairly familiar with this slide. So far to date, we've reached $104 billion or so of work awarded on the Giga Projects program to date. We're looking at about $850 billion in total for all of the Giga projects, the known Giga projects. And so we're a little over, maybe what, 15%, 12, 13% of the way through the Giga Projects program in terms of the value of work spent. And so it's still very early days. And it also indicates that the vast majority of work is still to come when it comes to the Giga Projects program and overall delivery contracts to be signed. Okay, as ever, we're going to do a few poll questions. And before we go any further, I'd like to ask you this question. So based on what you've seen and heard and discussed and talked about in the market, do you believe Saudi Arabia will this year award a higher value of contracts, award about the same value of contracts, or award a lower value of contracts? Keen to get your views and opinions on this. While you're doing that, just to remind you that we're recording this presentation, and it will also be sent to you email, and you'll have an opportunity to watch it again in your own time or read through it as well. And please put in your questions. I can already see we've got some questions coming in. Please feel free to ask them, and I'll try and answer them at the end of this webinar. Okay, so the results so far. All right, so 518 of you responded to this question. 45% of you say that you are expecting a higher value of contracts to be awarded in the kingdom in 2025. About the same value of contracts in 2025, 28% of you responded, and 27% of you said you expect to see a lower value of contracts to be awarded in Saudi Arabia this year. Thank you very much. That's great. Very interesting. So almost a majority of you think that the spending will continue and even grow this year. Okay, so I wanted to ask that question before I showed you this data. And this is the value of Giga projects awarded between 2019 and 2024. These Giga projects, of course, referring to those previous slides and the companies that were highlighted. So we saw from 2019 all the way up to 2023, year after year, increases in spending on projects in the Giga Projects program, reaching $33 billion alone in 2023. And given the amount of work and the sort of stage we're at with the Giga Projects program, there should have been last year a continuing increase in contracts to be awarded. However, what actually happened was quite a sharp fall in Giga project activity last year, down to about $25 billion of work awarded. Now, why is that? So I think most of us are aware or heard about this slowdown or pause in spending in the beginning of last year and going through the rest of the year as well, while the government reprioritized or evaluated the program. And I think that's felt, and you can see the impact of that in the amount of activity last year and the lower value of work awarded. Of course, a lot of the focus news was on the line on part of Neom, but there was also some challenges or some slowdown in activity on other Giga projects as well. So I think the key question in 2025 is whether this slowdown or pause in the projects market, the Giga projects market, is going to continue this year, or whether it is going to resume and accelerate again to the levels we saw in 2023 or even higher. Now, that said, we did see a slowdown in activity last year, but we still saw some pretty decent large contracts awarded. We saw two stadiums, actually three stadiums awarded, one in Jeddah Central, one at Qiddiya, and another in Dammam as well, so for Saudi Aramco and Roshan. So three big stadiums awarded. Of course, we also saw the Trojana Valley cluster dams awarded to rebuild early last year as well. And then we also saw Diriyah award about $5.6 billion of contracts, three major contracts worth totaling $5.6 billion at its Giga project to the west of Riyadh. And indeed, Diriyah was probably the most active Giga project company last year. So in terms of the value of work awarded last year by Giga project client, we can see Neom awarded the most, primarily as a result of two major contracts on Oxagon for the main container terminal, and also for Trojana, the Trojana Dam awarded to rebuild. Taking that aside, the most active and in terms of the value of work awarded and in terms of tendering activity was Diriyah, close to $7 billion of known contracts awarded last year for construction, followed then by Jeddah Central, Qiddiya, Roshan, and then Red Sea Global. Now, that said, we had to look at 2025 and what's coming up over the short term. And these are just some of the key contracts or projects out to bid right now, which have a pretty good chance of being awarded this year or even from tomorrow over the next few months, but certainly by the end of the year. These are the ones which have already been tendered, where bids may have already been submitted and where an award could be made very soon. So you can see here a lot of ENEWA, the utilities company component of Neom. Neom itself, clearly going to be some major contracts awarded this year, which we'll go into in a second. Diriyah has some major contracts out. It's going to continue spending this year. But once you take away Neom and Diriyah, it becomes a lot, there's a lot less of these big major contracts known out in the market today. And again, I think that goes back to that kind of pause or slowdown in spending that we saw last year. I think there is some hope for that Qiddiya will also offer some great opportunities over the next few months. And there are signs that King Salman International Airport is also going to proceed with a lot of work this year as well. And again, we'll go on to that in a second. Right, next question. And something I think that is going to be quite important. And this is, how much impact will the opening up of the Saudi real estate sector to foreign buyers have on the projects market? Now, Saudi Arabia has been talking about foreigners owning real estate, buying properties in the kingdom. What do you think will be the impact of that if, and a big if, that actually happens? So will it have a major positive impact, little to no impact, or have a negative impact? Well, there's a clear majority of you, more than 2/3, 68%, say that it will have a major positive impact. 30% of you say there will be little to no impact, and only 2% of you say it will have a negative impact. So quite clear cut there that most of you think that it will boost the projects market in the kingdom. I think that I tend to agree that it will have a positive impact. I think we can look at what happened in Dubai in 2001 when it opened up its market to international buyers. And I suspect Saudi Arabia will be a very popular investment destination for people to buy property, especially if it comes with long-term residency. I think also another driver for that would be potential timeshare investments or property investments in Mecca and Medina, the two holy cities. And I think also, of course, that the larger population, larger geographic size will also have a major driver for big driven investment. So there is still currently a shortage of housing for local nationals in Saudi Arabia, and I suspect that the government wants to close that gap and close that shortage before opening up the real estate sector. But clearly this is an ace up the government's sleeve, and in the event that the market does slump a bit, they can very much stimulate it by allowing international investors to come in, and a lot of which of course will be provided for by private sector real estate developers in the kingdom. Okay, another just a reminder or to you all joining us today is that MEED and Global Data, our parent company, have a WhatsApp channel where we send you exclusive updates and news every day that are happening in the projects market. You just go onto WhatsApp. Here are the different steps. You can go into the channel and then you follow it, and then you will get the most recent updates on a daily basis, keeping you informed of what's happening on the projects market. If you want to join, then just scan that QR code It is well worth looking at, and it certainly keeps you informed of the major events happening in the market. Right, now let's look at some specific developments overall on the Giga projects market in the kingdom. Now, we know that last year, a lot of attention was on the line and what was happening on it. There were a lot of negative headlines, I think it's fair to say, on what was happening there. And there was talk about delays and de-scoping and various other developments and rumors around what's happening on the line. So I want to just provide our insight into this and what's happening, and just give you our views and latest information on the project. Okay, so first of all, just clearing up some misconceptions about the line, just really clarifying what the line really is from our perspective and from our understanding of the project. Now, these images here were taken from a recent presentation given last week by Dennis Hickey at the PIF Private Sector Forum, which I attended. And these, I think, are good illustrations of how the sort of line works. And basically, one of the inspirations for the line is another linear type city, which is Manhattan. Of course, linear really because of its constrained due to its constraints of geography. And the line, I think, is a good way of seeing it is if you were to fold a 3 by 2 kilometer area of Manhattan, and you can see how you fold it up, and you can see how each module of the line encompasses such a large area. I think with the line, or each module is going to be 800 meters long, 200 meters wide, and 500 meters high. And I don't think everyone necessarily always completely understands the sheer size of one of these modules. I mean, 500 meters high would make it the 12th largest or tallest building in the world. Add to that 800 meters long, 200 meters wide, we're looking at some of the biggest structures ever built, and certainly some of the most engineeringly complex. If you consider that each module is going to accommodate roughly 60, 70,000 people, you can understand just how enormous some of these are. And there's no exaggeration to say that these are just absolutely massive, massive projects. Now, let's do some calculations. I've done some calculations here, which I won't go through each one, but you can start to just put into context how big these are and understand the sheer scope and breadth and challenge about building each of these modules. Based on some of these numbers that you see here, based on typical built-up area density for Manhattan, based on the total estimated built-up area for each module and the 3 combined as well, we can see just, we can start to get an idea about just how much some of these modules are going to cost. And even on a conservative basis, we believe, based on what we know and understand and hear, we're looking at about $50 billion for each module. So for the first 3 modules, we're looking at something like $150 billion alone just to build them. And that's a conservative estimate. It could well be double that, such as the sheer scale of it. And of course, this is not something we're going to really know until some of the full calculations and bids start coming in from contractors to build the main superstructures and the fit outs and MEPs and so on. So absolutely mammoth project. And this is going to be a project now which is going to be 100 years. Dennis Hickey was quite explicit at the PIF in his presentation, saying this is now a 100-year project. And clearly, when you look at the sheer scale of these projects, you can understand why that might be the case. So it's now official. There are 3 modules which are going to be the focus of the line over the short term. Yes, piling works have been done for many more modules and foundation works. Yes, we're looking at the spine and the high-speed rail along the length of the line, and also connecting to the new planned airport as well as Oxygen Port. But right now, the first three modules are modules 45, 46, and 47. And these are the ones which Neom is concentrating on right now. And you can see in terms of geography and location of these on the top left-hand corner, you can see that phase one, these first three modules are located about halfway down the line, and they're going to be located over what we call the hidden marina. And essentially that is, it's going to result in a gap in the key module 46, where ships are going to be able to enter and then proceed through and into a marina on the other side. So this is the thinking and the structure location for the first of those three modules. You can also got some key data down. We're looking at 206,000 people in those three modules, 80,000 plus homes, and some really astounding numbers, 140,000 jobs, built up area about 20 million square meters, 20 square kilometers, 20 square meters, a million square meters of real estate, 2.4 kilometers long, and a GFA of about 14.1 million square meters, 14.1 square kilometers. So, divide that by 3 and you get an idea of just how huge each of these structures are. And I think really what makes them huge is their height. As I said, you're looking at basically Princess Tower in Dubai or the clock tower in Mecca, over a total length of 800 meters, going back 200 meters. It's absolutely staggering, the scale and size of these projects. Right, so what's the latest on the line? As I said, it's the focus right now. And what's happening is that the tenders have been recently issued for the raft works, the piling and foundations works have been largely completed now over the last 2 years. And now we're looking at the sort of giant raft packages. I think it's probably fair to say some of the largest raft works and concrete pouring required that's ever been done, if not the largest. So we've got 2 tenders out for lot 1 for module 46 West, and then lot 2 for module 36 East. And bids for those are going to be due in on the 24th of March. And then I assume later on down the line that they'll be doing the raft works tenders for modules 45 and 47 as well. Now, each of the raft works are split into 3 sections, North Blade, Canyon, and South Blade. Here I've added some of the dimensions for these just to understand how big these are. And again, they are split again into mega core rafts, non-core rafts, and what we call the Canyon raft as well. And it's believed to require about the world's 2nd largest concrete pour. So it's going to, you're looking at something like 6.2 million cubic meters of concrete, about 1 million tons of rebar, and for the basements as well, you're looking at additional 2.8 million cubic meters of concrete and 600,000 tons of rebar. So once the raft works are done, then presumably we will proceed on to the core. And we're looking at something like 44 cores in each module, about 500 meters, obviously 500 meters tall, and they're going to require approximately 3.5 million cubic meters of concrete and some 3.9 million tons of steel. So this is going to be there's sort of initial elements, as you would imagine, and we'll kind of see, we'll have a better idea about the pricing and the ultimate capex for the modules once the bids start coming in for these from contractors. As you might expect, it's going to be split into multiple tenders given the sheer size of the project, and no one group of contractors or contractor will certainly be able to deliver this single-handedly. It's going to require multiple groups to help deliver. Now, once the sort of superstructure, the core structure is going to be put in place, then we need to go down into the MEP, different MEP elements of the each module. And again, as you can imagine, this is an incredibly complex and a difficult bunch of contracts to be able to implement. If you can consider how normally you would condense a lot of this into a 3x2 square kilometer area, you're now going to be compressing these into a much more vertical element as well. So if you can imagine the complexity of building utility systems, various security and lighting systems, mobility solutions, logistics, and so on, into such an area, then you can imagine the complexity, especially as it hasn't been done before. And it's going to require some real ingenuity and innovativeness. The problem is with something like this is when it hasn't really been done before at such a scale, then contractors do start adding in pricing in a lot of construction risk. And I think that's the real unknown when it comes into the ultimate capex for each module, is just how much the contractors are going to factor in this sort of risk and difficulties when pricing the various different MEP packages and work as well. So we'll see. Right. Now, alongside the MEP elements, there's going to be the fit out and the residential and commercial components, of course. Now, we saw there's going to be roughly 80,000 to 90,000 residents per module based on Neom's sort of announcements and data. And this is kind of giving all a sort of bit of a better picture on what Neom is planning within each module. And in this case, what you can see here, module 46, which is the central module. Now, of course, just bearing in mind that module 46 has this sort of archway through the middle to allow ships through into the marina. And so it's going to be a little bit different than modules 45 and 47, which will have a bigger area because, of course, they won't have this this arch type structure through the middle. Now, these three slides were actually taken from a previous presentation delivered by Dennis Hickey, which I've taken off a video from a YouTube channel called Giga Projects. There's a link to that particular video presentation at the bottom there, and certainly urge you all to watch that and visit that channel. It's very good. It has a lot of details on the Giga Projects market in Saudi Arabia. So now we've done again some calculations. Essentially, each module is going to be about 2 square kilometers of residential space, and that is in one module the entire equivalent to the residential area of Dubai downtown. So you can imagine you're basically squeezing in all of Dubai downtown into one module. Again, that just gives you a sheer scale of the actual project. Now, you can see here that Neom plan. The plan is to basically split, as you might expect, the residential components into various different mid-market, ultra-luxury, premium, and standard residential units. And of course, there's going to be office space. We talked earlier about several thousand, dozens of thousands of jobs being created. And naturally, there's also going to be a hotel around the arch structure. Now, this is, I think, where it gets interesting in terms of funding and financing for the line. Clearly, there are going to be some off-plan sales, which will help generate some revenues to help fund or finance this project. And in terms of potential commercial and retail elements as well, Neom will be looking to attract investors in hotels and retail elements and other components of the project to be able to start selling that and helping to generate revenue as well. But we'll wait and see how successful they are in doing that. But you can see just now how much more open Neom are becoming about their plans for each module and opening up and providing more details as they start to need to go into the market as well and go try to attract investors. So I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing some of these units to be sold at some point this year. Okay, so that's the latest on the line, and I hope you found that interesting. I certainly did when I was listening to that. Next, we're going to go into Murabba. And Murabba, also at the PIF Private Sector Forum last week, revealed some details around its vertical assets. And by vertical assets, I mean the buildings, above ground buildings, works, around the Murabba rather than just the Murabba itself. Previously, Murabba would focus mainly on the Murabba structure itself in terms of its announcements and its plans, as well as the basic infrastructure, the roads, the landscaping, and so on, as well around the Murabba. But the third element of Murabba are these vertical assets. And as you can see here, some details are starting to emerge about those. We're going to be looking at something like 17 communities or areas around the Murabba, 4 of which are going to be developed by 2030, and then a further dozen or so, 10 or so after that, and then a few more up to 2040. So you can start seeing the phasing strategy for New Murabba. So phase community 14 is going to have the stadium and the area around that in time for the World Cup, clearly. And then you're going to have these central areas around the Murabba itself, starting with community 2, I believe. So you can see here, you've got museums, you've got university, you've got arenas, food parks, and so on, all forming part of the master plan for New Murabba. And of course, I think it's worth noting that the detailed master plan hasn't yet been fully approved, so some of these things will change. Nonetheless, it's indicative of what's being planned by New Murabba. Again, some more details about what's being planned at New Murabba. We've got something like 19.6 square kilometers site area. We're looking at something like 420,000 people living there. You get some ideas. Now, it's interesting to note, again, comparing with the line obviously encompassing a much smaller total surface area, is going to have about half the population of this New Murabba, which itself is the world's largest downtown district, 8 times larger than downtown Dubai. So again, it just puts into context the sheer size of the line modules as well. Now, financing is a key issue when it comes to the Giga projects. We know that we're looking at tens of billions of dollars for the different Giga projects, and there is an increasing focus now on trying to draw in private sector and foreign investment into helping finance and build some of these huge projects. And New Murabba is no different, looking at different avenues and channels to be able to sort of finance elements of the project. And I think PPP certainly is going to become much more into conversation as New Murabba will be looking for PPP developments and financing for things like the waste water treatment, the solid waste collection, the power elements, and so on, as well as things like technology, smart city elements, partnerships across different elements of the project, as well as looking at naming rights and sponsorship and so on. So these are going to be sort of elements which are going to help finance deliver the project as well. In terms of the latest situation on the Murabba, we are now New Murabba is now evaluating the bids for the raft works. The raft works is going to require about $1 billion to $1.1 billion worth of work. The foundation earthworks, of course, done by China Harbour, nearly completed. And so we're moving on to the sort of raft works phase. Now, interestingly as well, talking about financing, is that New Murabba started to ask contractors if they are willing to finance part of the main works packages and to provide different options for how they could potentially do that, whether it's through export credit agencies, whether it's through debt, equity, self-funding, and so on. And also to start asking, about the performance bond options as well. So I think this is, again, a sign that the Giga project companies are moving away from straight budget government financing, PIF financing, and moving on to getting the private sector much more involved in funding these projects as well. Now, just a bit of illustration as well of what's inside the Murabba. This is going to be the central tower element, as we all know. Clearly going to be heavily commercialized with hotels, retail elements, clubs, shops, restaurants, and so on. And that's indeed going to help finance some of this this project as well. Off-plan sales for residential units and so on. And of course, it's not just the tower itself, but the entire interior of the dome is going to have investment opportunities as well. So we're looking at quite a commercial project, and it'd be interesting to see if the private sector and international investors buy into this vision, buy into this, and start investing in it. So far, across most of the Giga projects, doesn't appear that's been the case. So there's still a lot of work to do about trying to highlight to everyone the investment opportunities. And I think that's why we're seeing a lot more openness from the Giga projects themselves about what their plans are, because they need to attract investment, and they can't do that by sort of being secretive about what they're doing. Right, these other developments. Right, moving ahead is King Salman International Airport. Obviously, most of those elements, the plan is for them to be completed and ready by 2030. We've got Riyadh Air coming in. That's going to add a lot of capacity, airplane, flight capacity, and there is major plans to build a new iconic terminal, a Terminal 6, more runways and taxiways, private aviation terminal, hangars, logistics areas and zones around the city. So pre-qualification is underway for several of the major elements of the program. And interestingly, this is going to be done on an ECI, early contractor involvement basis. So the contractor groups are going to be invited to participate in the design of the main works, and then the client will select the best proposal from the different groups participating in the ECI process, based on both the quality of the design and also on the price. And then work will start almost immediately on the construction. So it's a very unusual, very different way of doing works in the kingdom. But it's definitely, ECI is becoming a lot more popular. It reduces construction risk. It speeds up the procurement phase of the project. And by getting contractors on board, it improves the constructability of projects as well. And I expect to see ECI becoming a lot more popular as time goes on. Diriyah, as I mentioned, the most active of the Giga projects. Over the last 12 months, I think $5.6 billion, 3 mega deals awarded last year. And there are various other contracts out in the market right now, the Grand Diriyah Mosque, Royal Opera House, and the Arena Block. Neom, outside of the line, the focus is on the event-driven Trojana project, must be ready by 2029 for the Asian Winter Games. We have right now bids being submitted for the Vault, a huge contract to go alongside the main reservoir being built by Rebuild. We also recently saw a contract for concrete works on the ski village, and also we're seeing bids now under evaluation for the general construction works of the ski village as well. So Trojana is going to offer a lot of opportunities. Now, a bit of exclusive for you. There is believed to be a new Giga project coming up called Project Paradise. This is in the southwest of Riyadh, around Wadi Laban, and this is going to be essentially involving the damming of the wadi, and then creation of a very large artificial lake around which there will be a new master planned community project with residential, commercial, leisure elements as well. So we'll wait to see if or when that comes out. It could be that the PIF doesn't want to launch it just yet because it wants to focus on other elements of the Giga Projects program, but there is master planning underway for this project, which has the working name of Project Paradise. And indeed, there are other working projects like Project C, for example, Project Line, which are also in the pipeline, but I won't go into those today. Other updates: Roshan just awarded $500 million of work on its Cedra community to build hundreds of new units, and bids are also due to be submitted soon for its stadium again in the southwest of Riyadh, the 46,000 seat National Guard Stadium. So another stadium will be awarded soon for the World Cup. And then Qiddiya. Now, Qiddiya has probably been the quietest of the Giga projects. over of the 5 official Giga projects over the last couple of years. But there are several packages and works out in the market right now, either at PQ stage or tender stage. And of course, last year it awarded its centerpiece, Prince Mohammed bin Salman Stadium, again, stadium designed for the World Cup. So it could be that Qiddiya comes back this year, has a lot of work to come out with. And then Rural Medina, another Giga project, work is proceeding now on Super Block 5, the first sort of major above ground assets, vertical assets that are coming out, that is planned as part of its massive development. Okay, I'm overrunning a little bit, and I do want to answer some of your questions, so I'm going to speed up now. So clearly, financing is a major issue for the project development on these Giga projects, but it's also a challenge for contractors as well. And we know that banks in the kingdom have reached the limit of their exposure to the contracting market and are reluctant to keep extending loans for things like performance bonds and tender bonds, and also general contracting requirements. So the government has stepped in by creating 2 new potential funding channels. One of them is the National Infrastructure Fund can now guarantee 50% of the bank loans in what is called an infra guaranteed financing. The first one was signed last week, and that was between Arab National Bank and Saudi Pan Kingdom, SAPAC, for the Roshan Giga project. So the NIF will, in the event of a default, guarantee 50% of the financing. So that lowers the risk, obviously, for the lender, the bank, and provides and helps extend the financing and liquidity and cash flow for the contractor, which is a very key issue right now. Another interesting and novel development was the signing of the first ever surety bond in the GCC. Now, surety bonds are quite common in US and Europe, but essentially they are an insurance product where an insurance firm will guarantee to the client the bond payment made by the contractor to the project. So while our insurance company basically has agreed to insure the performance bond for System Security Solutions Company, which recently won a contract for Red Sea Global. So rather than going to the banks, contractors are able to go to insurance companies to have their bonds guaranteed, and therefore their client also ensures that they know that they will be able to recover any finances in the event that the contractor defaults. So these are going to certainly help with the contracting market and cash flow general issues around those areas going forward. Now, other general issues, I think, around the Giga Projects program. So the mood amongst contractors over the last 6 months has been quite low. There has been a slowdown, as we saw, in project market activity in the kingdom. There's been a lot of tendering, but much fewer contract awards, and we saw that reflected in total spending levels in an earlier slide. And of course, we know why that is. There's been a recalibration, a sort of pause in spending by Riyadh as it looked at its priorities, as it looked at the sort of CapEx estimates coming in, the revised and updated ones, and as it digested the impact of having things like the Riyadh Expo 2030, the World Cup in 2034, and the Asian Games. And indeed, it's these event-driven projects which are now taking the priority because they have no choice. They have to be delivered by those dates. As I said earlier, there's a lot more openness and transparency about the Giga projects as they seek more funding opportunities and attract foreign and private sector investment. And we're going to see a lot more, I think, announcements around that, and a lot more transparency and openness about what these projects actually entail over time. And I think Neom revealing more details about the line is a great example of that. Now, we're definitely moving away from this 2030 sort of deadline. We're now seeing projects move into 2040. We've heard about Neom looking at 100 years now for the total project. So there's a definite much more acceptance about the sort of construction reality of these projects. Yes, a lot of them are going to be ready by 2030, like Trojena, for example. Red Sea Global has already opened its first 3 or 4 hotels and will open another 19 more this year. And Roshan, of course, has already started delivering some of its housing projects. But for a lot of them, we're now looking about beyond 2030 to 2040 and beyond that. Still, a lot of issues around staff turnover, especially amongst senior delivery guys at some of these Giga projects. A lot of contracts not being renewed. There's definitely some cost cutting going on, some consolidation of costs and expenses as well. So we'll see how that impacts these projects. And there's different type of contractual frameworks being introduced, such as master contracting, ACI. We're seeing a lot of construction management approaches being taken as well, all about reducing construction risk, about speeding things up, and about getting key stakeholders involved in as early as possible. So you don't get contractors receiving RFPs cold. They are involved in the design process, the concept design process. So they can contribute to the sort of scoping requirements, the constructability of projects, and start on the long lead item procurement as well. Final question, please. What do you of the following believe is the single biggest challenge facing successful Giga projects program delivery? Read them all, please, before choosing your answer. And I think this will be quite interesting and illuminating. What do you think are the biggest challenge? One single biggest challenge facing the Giga projects market. Okay, so we've got about 300 answers now. So let's go through that. So the largest single element of about a third of you have identified funding shortfalls, either by the client or by contractors trying to obtain contractor finance. And so that's interesting because it's something we just spoke about. So basically, it's about the money. Is the money there to finance these projects? And this is what people are saying is the biggest sort of impediment or challenge or obstacle to successful delivery. Next one, 20% of you, 1 in 5 of you say late payments and general cash flow issues to contractors. This is still obviously a long-running issue in the region. So that is also, you're saying, is a big impact. It's 16% of you saying that it's incomplete or rushed designs. So I think something ECI will try to overcome will be getting contractors involved in that earliest stage possible. A lack of main contractor capacity and capability, 12% of you. And then there's a mix under 10%. We've got 5% say staff or material localization requirements, 3% say low efficiency and productivity, 1% say lack of technology adoption, 2% say subcontractor quality of availability, which is interesting. I thought that would be higher. And then 5% of you say unfair contractual terms in favor of the client. But it does seem that financing elements, a lack of cash generally, is for 50% of you the sort of main issue that what you see as the challenge. Okay, just a reminder again about MEED. Please check us out. We've got our projects tracking service where most of the data today has come from. MEED.com, our news features analysis service. We've got our event coming up, the Saudi Giga Projects Conference and in mid-May. If you want to speak at that, if you're a key stakeholder, please let us know. And we've also got, there are premium reports and marketing solutions. Just finally, last question. If you are interested in talking to us to understand how MEED can support your business, please fill in this and we'll be happy to get in touch with you. And once done, I will move on to the Q&A. I can see we've got 56 questions. I'll do my best now to answer them one by one. Okay, we've got a few people saying in the Q&A that they would be happy to be a keynote speaker or speaker. So thank you for that. We will get back to you. And thank you all for filling out this last question. Okay, right. I can see 42% of you are interested to know more about the Giga Project Summit, which is great. We'll certainly get in touch with you about how you can attend or participate or sponsor or speak. Right. Okay, let's go to some of your questions. I don't know if I'm going to have time to answer them all, but I'll do my best. Now, is the dip in UAE contracts awarded in 2024 an indication of what to expect in Saudi Arabia this year? Or are the two independent and move separately? Totally separate. I don't think the performance of the projects market in the UAE is any or has much indication of how the projects market is going to perform in Saudi Arabia, to be honest. Very much driven by different aspects. Obviously, you've got a big oil and gas element in Abu Dhabi. And you've got a lot of real estate development in Dubai. But I really don't see them in lockstep, either historically or currently with what's happening in Saudi Arabia. So I don't think what happens in the UAE is necessarily an indication. Of course, if the oil price was to collapse, then we would see both fall back dramatically. But I don't really see what's happening in UAE as an indication of what's happening in the kingdom. Who is the design content on new design consultant on Murabba? It's a good question. I can't remember. I know Turner, I think, is the PMC, the overall sort of program manager. I think it might be Atkins on the mockup. We have that detail. You can check on MEED projects on MEED.com. That will give you the answer to that question. There's a rumor that the rig will now be built onshore as a normal resort on the East Coast. Is that true? And if so, is that another rescoping or descaling of the ambition? It's an interesting rumor. I haven't heard that. I do know that contracts were awarded recently, I believe, to Al Yamama for the onshore terminal elements. But that's an interesting rumor. It might be true, it might not be true. That's something we'll have to find out and come back to you on. What is the forecast for water projects this year? I think the water sector is a priority key sector. A lot of it, of course, is now being done on a PPP basis in terms of desalination, reservoir and storage, as well as transmission works. This is going to help accelerate the project because it's not going to depend on government direct budget support. But at the same time, we've got the NWC, which is coming straight from the government budget in the transmission and distribution networks. This really is also a very key area. And we've seen a big doubling of water sector spending over the last 2 years, and I expect this will be maintained. If you just look at the NWC alone, the amount of work that they're tendering is massive. So in terms of power and water, these two will continue, I think, to dominate spending in the kingdom. What about projects in the Ras Al Khair region in Saudi? Well, this is something that's going to become increasingly more focused on. At the moment, most of the Giga projects have been focused on the west and the center of Saudi Arabia. We've got Saudi Downtown Company now looking at various more minor cities and investments in projects there. We've also got Asir, we've got Suda in the far south as well, looking at tourism and infrastructure development. And of course, we've more recently, but not official and not announced, we've got Project Line, which is the Gulf Coast Real Estate Development Company, PIF subsidiary, which is developing a major mixed use and residential community at Khafji to attract Kuwaiti buyers, as well as people living in around that sort of Ras Al Khair area of the kingdom and Khafji area around the border with Kuwait. And that is going to be a major project, some 14 kilometers in length, with agricultural and mixed use and residential elements. And I think eventually we'll also see more PIF Giga projects announced along the Gulf Coast, Dammam, Khobar area. We know that there's a project coming up or planned in Sheba, further along down near the UAE border. So there are going to be more projects announced and focused on for that. When this total projects awarded to date, $104 billion, that's Giga projects awarded to date. So the Giga projects program really only kicked off and started awarding contracts in 2018. 2019. So that $104 billion is really from that period, 2018 to 2019 to date. Thank you for arranging this webinar. Actually, I forgot to mention, just a reminder, we got the Giga Projects Q1 2025 report. If you're interested in a much more detailed assessment, data and analysis, 700, 800 pages of detail on each of the Giga projects in Saudi Arabia. Please look at this report, QR code there. You get a discount for attending today. It's our most popular report. Please check it out. It is absolutely recommended if you are involved in Giga projects. And again, just another reminder, as I mentioned, hosted by Russian Group at The Venue in the north of Riyadh on 12th to 14th of May. This is our Giga Project Summit. It is the best summit on Giga projects. We have all the major Giga project clients giving presentations on their different procurement strategies, the different contract packages upcoming on their individual projects. So if you are interested at all in networking, meeting the Giga project clients, or hearing more about their specific procurement and contracting opportunities, this is the event to be at. Is there project scope reduction for the line of Neom? Well, it depends how you look at it. If you speak to Neom, they say their plan was always only 3 modules initially. But when looking at the whole 170-kilometer length of the line, then for sure, now looking at 3 modules is only a tiny chunk of that, 2.4 kilometers long. So clearly, depending on your perspective, there's either been a scope reduction or there's been a time frame extension. Good morning. Does the map show or reflect all the awarded projects? Yes. So $104 billion is comprised of those projects you saw on that map. Can you comment on the data center sector? So we did last month, we did a exhaustive presentation webinar on the data center projects market. So I would recommend you check that out on YouTube or on MEED.com or MEED Projects. We have the presentation and the recording of that. And that will give you very much a deep insight into the data center projects market right now, the drivers, the technologies, and developments in renewable energy for those as well. So I won't comment on that right now because we've got a massive report and presentation on that, which you can find online. Can we expect more wind power projects? Wind is difficult in the GCC because the wind profiles aren't necessarily there. So there's much more focus on solar projects, generally speaking. But along the Red Sea coast, you will see more wind projects as well as in the south of Oman. But wind generally along the Gulf Coast isn't the most optimum solution. So there's been a much more of a focus on that. But we will see more pumped hydropower projects and wind power projects as well in terms of renewable energies over the next few years. How much is actual spending rather than just awarded value? It's a very good question because, of course, we're touching on actual construction contracts signed. And now of that $260 billion awarded last year, only a small chunk of that will have actually yet been spent because it takes time for the projects to be mobilized. And only in the second and third year of contracts is that money really being spent. However, we also saw a large chunk of work being awarded in 2023. And so we're now starting to see that investment flow through to the projects themselves. And it's this year that we're going to start seeing a steep rise, we believe, in material costs, things like cement, concrete, windows, equipment, and so on, as that construction that proceeds. And yes, in terms of actual construction, yes, once contracts have been signed, in most cases, the vast majority of cases, yes, they are proceeding to construction. Just check out Diriyah and what it's already achieved there. You can go, if you're in Riyadh, and you can see a large proportion of Diriyah has been completed, is open to the public. Have there been any public announcements on what projects are being deprioritized. No, there has been no announcement, and I'll be very surprised if there was one. The best way to evaluate that would be to read between the lines, between, looking at the number of announcements, looking at launches, looking at presentations. One will get a sense of what will proceed quickly and what won't. You can see something like Doria is a cornerstone of that sort of plan to be completed largely by 2030. I would expect that to really proceed. Projects like Roshan, which are funded a lot by off-plan sales, that will, also proceed quite quickly, I think. Kidia, which has a good commercial rationale, I believe that will also proceed quite fast. Trojena, of course, and Red Sea Global has already opened its first phase. So, but when you look beyond that, some of the other Giga projects which haven't really started, I don't know, then there might be doubts that will arise. But it's for sure the government has to focus on the expo and the stadiums and the winter games. So those are going to be the priority, but no one's going to say this project is not our priority anymore. Are the contract values used in the presentation available for public, or do you get the values through private channels? So MEED is built around exclusive information and data. Almost none of this data is public, right? And the PIF doesn't publish a list of the contracts awarded and the values, neither do any of the Giga project clients. There's no list of the tenders or the contracts awarded or the bidders or anything like that. So what MEED does is focuses on speaking to the market, the clients, the consultants, and the contractors to get that information. And that's the only really way of doing that. So we are in a unique position of being able to quantify what's happening and understand some of these trends. Be able to rank clients and developers, see what's out in the market in terms of business development opportunities and so on. So really, this is our raison d'etre in terms of what MEED does. And, all this data is exclusive and really can't be found anywhere else. Do you have some data on oil and gas and power future projects in Saudi Arabia? This is a bit outside the scope of the presentation today. We're looking at Giga projects. I think we are going to be doing an overall Saudi Arabia webinar later this year. We're going to do an oil and gas webinar as well, power webinar. So if you attend future webinars, we will be spending a lot more time on those two segments. Same question about water sector projects. We will be doing a water sector webinar, but safe to say water sector is extremely active right now. SWA, SWPC, Saudi Irrigation, General Irrigation Authority, and of course the NWC are all very active, and some of the largest expenditure right now is in the water market. Considering last year's budget expenditures, how can you justify your expectation of a 2.7% growth for 2025? We haven't made any expectations or forecasts for 2025 in this presentation. I personally, at this stage, am wary about making a prediction or forecast for 2025 in the Giga Projects program. I like to wait a few months to see what has actually happened before reaching a conclusion. But I still think 2025 is going to be a good year overall. I've got a question here about Turkey. I can't answer that today, unfortunately. It's a bit out of scope. But so please reach out to me. You've got my details here if you want to have questions. Question here, I need to know a list of companies that have won these projects, the contractors. If you buy the Premium Intelligence Report, it has the list of the contractors which have won every known contract on the Giga projects. Alternatively, our projects tracking database, MEED Projects, also has that data. What is the impact of geopolitical challenges on expected investments in Saudi Arabia? I assume a lot of that is around the Israel-Palestine crisis and, of course, President Trump coming into power. I expect the Saudi Arabia will be under a lot of pressure to increase its investments in the US and also face some pressure to lower the oil price. However, I think it's a bit too early to say yet what the impact on the Giga project and overall spending levels are going to be, unless these geopolitical challenges result in lower oil prices, which I think will be ultimately the biggest driver for major project market spending changes. what is the current approach by developer owners deliver projects? Is it via PMC? So each Giga project client is free to follow their own procurement strategy. So if you look at Roshan, they have adopted the long-term procurement of materials and equipment and the ECI approach to their project delivery. Of course, they're delivering mainly homes and houses, quite different from, say, Neom, which is delivering the line, or Trojana. But nonetheless, they've taken the ECI approach. And somewhere like Red Sea Global, they've taken the construction management approach, where they are procuring directly to the suppliers and the subcontractors, rather than awarding large main construction contracts, general construction contracts. If you go to Daria, what they're deciding is that they are bundling the various different smaller contracts into one huge mega contract, as they find that's more cost efficient and of more interest to the main contractors. So everyone's taking slightly different approaches depending on their project, their own strategy, their own attitude towards procurement. So there's no one means or the other. If you look at King Salman International Airport, they're looking at ECI. Others might be looking at much more of a PPP approach. So there's no one way or one method that each ones are using. This is a good question and one I can't answer. If the line is the world's second largest concrete pour, what is the first? I don't know is the answer. I'm sure I could look it up and find out, but thank you for that question. Do we have a date for the MEP and utilities contracts on the line? No, I think it obviously would depend on how the core and raft works go, but we are looking, I guess, if those are awarded this year, then we might be looking at 26, 27 for the other elements, interior elements of the work. Who is the PMC and designer for the line? Well, I mean, there's dozens and dozens of companies have contributed to the design. I think it was Metamorphosis which first came up with the concept, but then over the years, various major companies and design firms and PMCs have come on board. You've got companies like AECOM and Atkins, Mott MacDonald, all participating or doing various elements of the project. Jacobs as well, I think. Are these projects going to be 100% fueled by renewables? Well, yes, Neom is going to be fueled by renewables. It's off-grid anyway, so it doesn't require its own captive power plants. All of them are going to be renewables. If you look at Red Sea Global, it's got its own solar power plant, district cooling plant, wastewater treatment plant, all done on a renewable basis and all built itself on a PPP basis as well. So these are off-grid, remote locations, so they need to have their own water desalination, district cooling, and power generation requirements. If you go somewhere like, say, Roshan or New Murabba, Daria, these are already connected to the grid, so due to their location, so they don't necessarily need their own little power generation requirements, although they will, in some cases, need water treatment facilities and substations, for example, which are going to likely be developed on a PPP basis, but not necessarily renewable. A question here, how long is this presentation going to last? Far too long, I guess, for a lot of you. I overran a little bit, but thank you all for staying. We'll answer these questions. When will Neom 2025 budget be signed off? No idea, I'm afraid. I'm not sure if the whole budget will be signed off, but I believe the Neom will start needing to get indicative pricing for the various elements before it can start going to ask for financing and full funding for them. But the actual budgets for some of these projects, this is a bit of a nebulous area and something that's very difficult to get visibility on. Do ECI contracts include invitations to local manufacturers too in the early design stage to support local content, in addition to enhancing deliveries and solving logistical challenges? Yes, so I think as part of the ECI process, the contracting groups, when they're doing the design, will be reaching out to the supply chain whether that's local content or international content, to get ideas around the costings for their proposals for the construction element of the project. So yes, there is going to be involvement of all the supply chain in theory during those ECI processes. And the idea is that you're bringing these stakeholders in at an earlier stage to give their input so that you don't get this kind of surprise element or people being caught out cold later on when the pricing as a result could be much higher. So it's considered a win-win. Any news regarding Riyadh Metro Line 2 and Line 7? Well, Line 2 is the extension into Diriyah. I believe it's still under evaluation. We'll wait and see. There should be a contract award soon. And Line 7, I believe, it went into the pre-qualification phase. I believe companies are now being pre-qualified, tender issued, less clarity on what's going to happen with that. But if you look at Diriyah's plans and master plan, it does involve both of these two projects. So it does look like they will be will proceed. Delta Junction Tunnel, which is what's the latest on that, which is at Neom. It's connecting Oxagon with the line. I believe that will be awarded soon. But of course, with all these projects, with the line now being reduced or just being focused on the first three modules, there obviously are going to be questions around the spine and the high-speed rail and the rail elements if the immediate plans are not for the line to be developed along the full length in the short term. I'm not answering all your questions. If I don't answer your question, it's because I probably because I don't have the answer to them. So apologies. I also got so many questions. I've got 95 questions, so I won't be able to answer them all. Okay, you haven't mentioned about the descoping or cancellation of several Neom components. Neom now is just Trojena, the line, Oxagon, and Sindala. Everything else is off. Can you please confirm if this is your understanding? Well, I'm not sure about that. I mean, the five main regions of Neom are the ones you just mentioned: Trojena, line, Oxagon, Sindala, but also Magna, which was announced throughout last year as a series of hotel projects. I'm pretty sure that's still ongoing. There's Shusha Island as well, which I believe is also ongoing. And of course, there's the green hydrogen complex as well, which will be completed next year, I understand. So, I think most of it is in terms of what's been announced is still proceeding. There might be some doubts about the international airport, I believe. But for now, we are seeing things continue. I haven't heard of any, official or confirmed cancellations on anything. What are the implications of the new Neom CEO? Of course, as we know, previous CEO was replaced by, unfortunately, I can't remember their names, terrible names, but the head of real estate at PIF was replaced, the previous CEO at Neom. What are going to be the implications of this? It's difficult to say. I think a fresh face will be able to look at the projects again, maybe from a different perspective and maybe able to make some decisions, reevaluate, reprioritize projects. It could be that there's going to be more openness. It could be that there's more commercialization of the projects. But at the moment, haven't seen a huge amount of difference. PPP has longer payback tenures, which does not necessarily suit the risk appetite of international players. Well, that, yes, of course, is true. Most PPPs are over a 20, 25-year concession period. Banks are becoming increasingly less interested in funding projects over such a long period. There are better short-term funding opportunities. But we haven't seen a shortage of developers coming in to take on these projects. So it seems to be working quite well at the moment, the PPP market. So we've got NCP, which has more than 250 PPP projects in the pipeline, many of which are in new sectors. And there still seems to be quite a good appetite for PPP projects in the market, regardless of the sort of contractual frameworks which are being used. Which of the Giga projects pay on time, are the most interesting and best to work with? couldn't possibly answer that question live here, but if you get in touch with me, I might be able to give you some potential feedback on that. Any news about Neom Airport? I think that is one of the ones which are potentially could potentially be reprioritized or looked at, as I mentioned earlier. What else? Just go back to the right page. There we are. Right, I'm running out of time. Ran massively over, but thank you for the questions, for sticking around. How serious is Saudi Arabia's project financing shortfall? Are you expecting any project cancellations this year? Look, I think the Giga Projects program is an essential element of the 2030 vision. And as a result, I don't think it's politically going to be acceptable or accepted to officially cancel Giga Projects. I think we might see them going a bit quiet. We might see a lot of slowdown, but I don't think we will see any announcements that this project is being cancelled. I really don't. But in terms of project financing, yes, I mean, financing and project financing, whether it's from the PIF or from the government, or it's going to be an issue. We're going to see much more borrowing for the Giga projects, bond issuances. We're going to see different ways of being able to increase financing, attracting investment, or PPP, going down the PPP route. So there is I think it's probably fair to say there isn't $50 billion available to build a single module at the line. So the idea is that you're going to be finding that money over time. You're going to be raising the cash, through different methods, and hopefully with that, we'll see some of these projects, progress. Any updates on Land Bridge? Land Bridge is a massive railway between Jeddah and Riyadh, and then on to Dammam. Long been talked about and discussed. No updates. We're expecting the Chinese to really come in, finance the project, but very, very long-winded and lengthy negotiations still on that. Okay, I'll answer one more question because I've run out of time. How come the Khafji PIF project is not appearing on the Giga project map? No particular reason. I just haven't added it, probably for space reasons. But if you listen to my previous webinar on the Giga Projects program, you will see a couple of slides on the project line, the Khafji PIF project. Okay, so a lot of interest obviously on this. I haven't been able to answer all of your questions. Apologies. You've got my email address here, my WhatsApp. If you have any questions or want to speak or reach out to me, please do so, and I'll do my best to try and answer. Don't forget our Giga Projects conference happening in May. I'll be there. It's an unbelievable event. Really hope I can see you there face to face. The Giga Projects report, also well worth reading if you want to know everything about the Giga Projects program as well. So thank you very much for your attention, for sticking with it. It's been 90 minutes now. I hope you found it useful and valuable. As I said, it's being recorded. It will be uploaded, and also you should have already the presentation itself in your inbox. Looking forward to speaking to you next month. We'll be looking at the overall GCC projects market across all sectors and countries. And for now, have a great rest of the day, and look forward to speaking to you all again soon. Goodbye.